Our sponsor today is Winty. Winty is an aviation-themed t-shirt business designing and printing aviation-related graphics for pilots, aviation businesses, and aviation enthusiasts worldwide. Using DTG direct-to-garment printing technology, Winty can print 1 or 100 plus garments upon request within a reasonably low turnaround time, including customer-submitted graphics. Contact Winty Aviation T-Shirt Art by visiting winty.com today to find out how a custom aviation graphic could be printed for you. Hello everyone, good afternoon and welcome to Savvy Central Radio. This is your host, Christina Nichman. Each week on Savvy, we host new individuals and business owners, inviting them to share their expertise, dreams, and lessons learned in their field of business. Our guest today is Mike Goulian, Red Bull Air Racer and World Aerobatic Champion. Mike doesn't just fly an air show, he attacks it. With millions of air show spectators around the globe having witnessed the ferocity of Mike Goulian's air show performance, every roll, pull, and tumble of his flight is a deliberate execution of precision. With his aggressive approach to the air show arena, Mike Goulian has mastered the ability to convey his message of passion through flight. In this episode, he shares his most important lessons learned in aviation and business. Visit their website today at mikegoulian.com. Hi, Mike. Thanks for coming to Savvy Central Radio. How are you today?
Oh, great. Looking forward to getting ready for 2014 air shows and the Red Bull Air Race season. So even though we just wrapped up big 2013, we're already looking forward to next year. So good times around here.
Oh, that's phenomenal. I remember, Mike, I saw you at the last Red Bull Air Race with my friend, and I was so glad that they came to New York City. We're actually New Jersey, and it was just a phenomenal time. I know you're going to blast it this time and be phenomenal. And, Mike, before we get started, because this is usually a business show, but we're bringing out 8 aviators for Aviation Month this month to share their greatest experiences from the cockpit that we could also apply to our life and business. So from your early beginnings in aviation, from working at your parents' flight school to earning your pilot license, becoming the leading aerobatic expert, president of Executive Flyers Aviation, and building your own business, Goulian Aerosports, what drew you to becoming an aerobatic competitor, instructor, and airshow pilot?
Christina, the truth be told is I was a competitor in everything that I did as a kid, whether I played hockey or golf, and I just took that into business and to flying. So when I started competing in aerobatic competition, it was just something that I just fell in love with it. And I love to compete. I love to try to better myself and have a goal, and competition aerobatics did that. So now, whether it's really my airshow business or our flight school or whether it be the Red Bull Air Race, I love that environment because it always challenges me to do something that makes me better every day.
And I know this month we're getting a lot of business owners that happen to be either pilot, on the weekend or pilots in general. What would be your top tip for pilots of all ranges out there?
It goes probably for any, I don't want to say hazardous occupation, but something that's dynamic like flying or race car driving or sailing. And that is, you have to have an honest assessment of your own capability. And it changes from day to day. So whether you're current flying in the clouds, whether it's been a month since your last air show or whatever it might be, you have to have a realistic expectation, and there's really no bravado that should come into flying. And if you can sort of keep the little devil off your shoulder, you're going to be a lot safer for it.
I like that tip right there, Michael, because I'm sure a lot of people out there, they might not fly during the winter as much, and then summer comes around and you feel a little bit more capable than you actually are. Or you just might wake up one day and have a really bad cold, and honestly, you're not up to your best flying ability. So it's great no matter where you are just to be honest, like you say, and just admit where you are today, and that's okay.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. Who do you hold in really deep regard as a pilot, and why?
Oh, boy, there's lots of them. I have to say the people that I have sort of tried to emulate the most are some of the astronauts that I've met, Charlie Precourt being one, who was the head of the astronaut corps after Hoot Gibson, and Hoot Gibson being another one. Those two guys are some of the most capable test pilots, aviators, business people, builders, family men, everything that you'd ever come across. And even though they're godlike in the aviation industry, they are absolute professionals, and they're just more than anything very, very humble. So that's the coolest thing, is that even though we might have done some fun things in our lives and been able to be lucky enough to accomplish some goals, always to be grounded is the most important thing. So it's not, for me, it's not always, hey, how good is that person, or what have they done? It's what are they as a person? And if you look at some of those guys, that's, for me, tops, is how good are they when the camera's not on them and they're not in a cockpit, because that makes a difference as to how they live their whole life.
Wow, that is so true. How you live your life in one area is how you live your life in every area.
Absolutely.
Well, and Mike, I have to tell you, when I met you at the Red Bull Air Races, me and my friend, you were so personable. I mean, you took your time with every single person that you met as if you had met them and they were the most important people in the world. And I really, really appreciate that. That was just really phenomenal.
It's fun, I'm doing something that I never, ever thought I would have the opportunity to do, and that's really make a living flying these beautiful racing or aerobatic machines around the sky. And I can remember being in Florida with my dad and opening up the hangar where Clint McHenry, who is the 3-time national aerobatic champion, kept his airplane, and looking in there and thought, wow, it looks more like a spaceship than it does an airplane to a 22-year-old kid. And now to be able to own my own, for me, I still think it is definitely a privilege, and it's not a right. So there's no reason not to come to work in the morning with a smile on your face.
And there's another thing that intrigued me about you, Mike, is that you are so family-oriented. I see you at a lot of the air shows. I saw you at AOPA conference, I think last year, with your wife Karen and your little girl. God bless them.
Yep.
And I just love it. Had your daughter started to show a little bit of interest in flying herself, or? A
little bit. I think at the moment she just thinks Dad's a chauffeur, right? That's all. Doesn't every kid fly around in the back of a plane and, hey, Daddy, make it bumpy, and she has fun. And so I don't know if she's shown that much interest in it yet. Right now, at 7 years old, she's more interested in friends and sleepovers and things like that. And like my dad did with me, I'll expose Emily to flying, and if she takes to it, that's great. And if she doesn't, I'll be just as proud. So no worries either way.
Aw, and Karen is indeed your wife, a pilot, a licensed pilot.
She is. She's a pilot, and she helps run our business. So a lot of the marketing, sponsorship stuff that you see, our website, our business logistics, Karen is doing all of that, which allows me to really focus on flying the airplane, because just like a single team owner in NASCAR, we're kind of the same thing in the airplane business. So we try to do it all. And if you don't have good people around you, it's difficult for me. So because we have great people, both in our team and with my wife, I'm allowed to fly the airplane with a free mind on a business weekend, and that's awesome.
Yay, that is totally awesome. And so I'm hearing you mention at the beginning that Red Bull Air Races is coming 2014. Yay, are you competing?
Yeah, absolutely. It was funny enough, the airplane that I used to fly sold to a friend down in North Carolina, and when I knew that the air race was making rumors about coming back, I inquired, and the airplane was going to be for sale, so I bought it back, and now we have the airplane all torn into a million pieces up here in Boston, just going through it, changing the color scheme of the plane, and getting it ready for the race season. So we're working fast and furious to get it ready, because the first race is the third week of February, so we've got to be ready.
Wow, that's really intense. It's coming right up. The time, I find, after September just goes flying by to the new year. It's insane.
Absolutely.
But I'm really excited about that. Do you know if the Red Bull Air Races is coming to New Jersey, New York area?
It is not. It's going to be inside the Speedway in Fort Worth, and just outside of Dallas, in the Texas Motor Speedway, and then inside the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. So one race will be in September, the other one in October.
All right, I'm going to keep that in mind and get my buns over there. That's awesome.
That's it.
Well, I had to say, I heard you mention before that the first time you came across looking at the wonderful ship and airplane you get to fly now, that it felt a little bit like looking at a spaceship. And I can relate. The first time I was ever introduced to flying was in 2006. And when I came across a cockpit and saw all the instruments, or as I thought of them at the time as, kind of like clocks,
Yep.
I was like, how does anyone ever get the handle of all of this? It seems impossible. But as you know, as you continue to practice and learn bit by bit, it does become more natural.
It's really pretty. It's simple, and you essentially learn an airplane's cockpit by using it. And once you start to fly, you realize that everything makes sense, and you look at a certain gauge at a certain time, and it just all comes into a natural, what you call in the airplane world, a flow pattern. So, hey, it's just like driving a car. When I step on the gas, what's the next thing I do? I look at the speedometer. What's the next thing I do after that? I look in front of me to make sure I don't hit the guy in front of me. And it's the same thing in an airplane. You put the power forward, you look at how fast the RPMs are turning and how fast is the airplane going, and everything is a space. So it really becomes quite natural.
Yeah, I'm still learning myself. I did some lessons, had to stop for a while due to money. But yeah, I could totally see that after a while I got very comfortable with the instruments. But it's funny you mentioned that because that's exactly how I felt when I first came across a cockpit. But Mike, I'm excited to learn because you've had vast experience in aviation and business. What's been your most important lesson learned over the years that you'd like to share with the audience?
I think my dad really, he instilled this in me, and that was just essentially, if you work hard in your everyday life, you'll never be a failure. And that's the biggest thing is, so it may not be always the easiest route. It may not always be the most successful route. But if you have a work ethic that's better than the next guy, you're going to get there. And that's the way I've always looked at it. I've never been afraid of putting in another hour or putting in another day or putting in more time or putting in a little blood, sweat, and tears that the other person doesn't do. And I think a lot of times that's the difference between failure and success is you just wanted it a little bit more.
I love that because I know many years ago I had a particular goal I wanted to reach, and I was so close, and I started to feel like I wasn't going to reach it, so I stopped.
Yep.
And of course, then I failed. But it occurred to me years later when I look back that I was 1 inch away from success had I just plugged away just a teeny bit more.
Yeah, and sometimes when you think you're at the bottom of the hill, you're really at the top.
Yeah, just to keep going because you never know when tomorrow might be the day you reach that goal.
Yep.
So yeah, don't give up. And so I know that you have a flight school and you're the president of Executive Flyers Aviation. Now I'm just curious, is anyone able to book dual instruction with you personally? Is that possible?
It's hard. I could say yes, but the truth of the matter is when they can actually get on my schedule is another point. So at the moment, I really fly with most of our flight instructors, and at that, the aerobatic flight instructors, and we have a really nice Cirrus training center. We've been transitioning people into the Cirrus SR-20 and SR-22, which are just great.
I know, I love them.
Yeah, they're fantastic. So I do most of my flying with those folks, and then once the customers, if they really want to fly with me, and more on the aerobatic side than anything else, because as we spoke about before, I'm not as proficient and current training people as our flight instructors are that are doing it 5 and 6 hours a day. So I let them handle that. But when it comes time to, hey, I'm at this level in our aerobatic school and I'd like to get to the next level, then I'll come and fly with them.
Wow. So are you saying that you have fully qualified aerobatic instructors there besides yourself?
Yeah, so our school, Executive Flyers, started, my dad started in 1964. So next year will be our 50th year in business, and we have about 25 airplanes, anything from Cessna 172s, 182s, Piper Arrow, a Duchess, Cathlon, and Extra 300. So we have about 12 to 15 instructors at any one time, and we fly quite a bit, about 10,000 hours worth of flying a year. So that's our family's business. Something that a legacy that we're really proud of.
Awesome. And how do you feel? Do you feel that most students should go out there and get a little bit of aerobatic training, like some point in their life?
Yeah, I have to say, and this is very controversial, but the flight training industry has become more of a systems management, button-pushing group of people. And the truth be told is I think it's doing a huge disservice to the airframe manufacturers and to the industry because there's a lot of accidents that are really unnecessary. And even up in the airlines where we saw the Air France accident out over the ocean just because some ice on a pitot tube caused a disaster. So I think that everybody should get some type of stick and rudder flying or unusual attitude course so they understand how the angle of attack works in relation to pitch attitude out the window and where the stick position is, and pitch power and performance is something that the Air Force teaches but is not really taught in schools anymore. And so it's really just not really making great general aviation pilots. And that's what we really do. And people, they don't understand an airline pilot They get the weather given to them, they have the route given to them, they get the fuel load given to them, and they get in there and they just fly the airplane from A to B. But a general aviation pilot or a corporate pilot has to check their own weather, pre-flight their own airplane, make sure it's fueled, make sure the destination weather is correct, make sure there's no NOTAMs, does all of those things, and then has to make all those decisions personally. The company's not doing it for them. So they're doing a very dynamic job. And the most important part of that is having to fly the airplane. And I say it's okay to be safe on your best day, but are you really safe on your worst day?
Wow, that's a really good point, because what happens if I was talking to one instrument pilot recently and the weather was just a little bit cloudy. I mean, it was just marginal IFR, and he said, I just don't feel like filing a flight plan, and he had just gotten his instrument rating, and he said, I'll just wait till next year when the weather gets warmer to do some more instrument flying. And I thought, what if he gets himself into an airplane like 8 months down the road, you haven't practiced, you just got your instrument rating, are you really going to be qualified to go out there and handle instruments at that point?
Yeah, it's one of those things. It comes back to proficiency. When they got their instrument certificate on that day, yeah, they're good to go for the next couple of weeks or another 3 weeks. Yeah, they're good to go. But if you don't get into the clouds back very quickly, then you should go with another flight instructor, with your flight instructor, get recurrent, retrained, and then go back and start all over again. So for me, currency is a week or 2 weeks and not 8 months. And that goes for instrument flying. That goes for airshow flying. For airshow flying, it's almost 4 or 5 days. So I would never go to an airshow and perform if I hadn't practiced multiple times in the 3 or 4 or 5 days prior to the event. It's too difficult to do, and there's too much riding on it. So your proficiency is everything.
Yeah, I absolutely agree there. And what I'm noticing in general aviation on a whole is there's been a big drop in pilots and people getting involved in general aviation. Why do you think this is so, and what would be some possible solutions to getting people up in the air and interested in flying again?
It seems to me that people are apathetic about flying. Even airplane owners today, it's more of a, hey, I need to get from point A to point B, and that's why I bought this airplane, as opposed to I'm flying because I just love to fly. And we talk about that. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm going flying today just for the joy of it, because we do that with race cars, we do that with sailboats, we do it with skiing, we do it with golfing and tennis, do it with going to the opera or the play. Everybody has their hobby, and they do it for enjoyment. And somehow in aviation, there's a lot of us that feel, hey, if we have some sort of a reason to do this endeavor, it doesn't sound so bad. And truth be told, there's nothing wrong with having fun in an airplane.
Absolutely. You can just go out to have fun. It doesn't have to be that you have to get from A to B. One thing that concerns me, and you were just mentioning this, how people are losing a little bit of their stick and rudder, is that what I'm noticing is people seem to be a little bit gadget crazy. Like we mentioned Cirrus, which is an airplane I truly love to death. I get to fly right next door to my pilot friend who's totally certified in the airplane in the right seat, but I'm just overwhelmed by how much there is to pay attention to in like the Perspective G1000. There's just so many screens and so much information coming at you that I wonder if it's just not one of the things keeping people from really getting comfortable with stick and rudder, because they're so into their gadgets and airplanes these days.
You take an airplane with like the Cirrus, and I used to own a Bonanza, and I sold my Bonanza, and now I have a Cirrus. And so I didn't fly it for 6 weeks because I was out in California flying air shows, and I came home and I wasn't proficient. So what did I do? I went out and I just did a beautiful VFR flight. I got myself back familiar with autopilot functionality, working with screens. Then I flew at night, and then I worked my way back into it, because even for me, 6 weeks out of one airplane, it's a lot. And so if you take a Cirrus, it has all kinds of capabilities. It has a let's just go flying, look out the window, and buy a $100 hamburger. You don't have to engage the autopilot. You don't have to use the TKS system. You don't have to use the in-flight weather. We're only flying 50 miles, right? And then start to layer on the capabilities of the airplane as it really going along with the pilot's capability. So as you get more proficient, or you just become a better and better pilot, you can add on those layers. So even though your airplane has all of that stuff, that doesn't mean you have to use it.
But you would probably say it's a good idea to get up to date with them bit by bit, so that should you ever need to use them, at least you know how to use them.
Exactly. And obviously when you get an initial checkout in it, you're going to learn how to use all of that stuff. But it's one of those things is I don't need to file an IFR flight plan and fly on a route if I'm going to go 30 miles away and do touch and goes.
Absolutely.
Right. And then I might not have to engage the flight director. I might not have to use the autopilot, because if you go out flying with a goal in mind every time and you just execute that goal, then you have a plan. And that's what we say is plan the flight and fly the plan. And that's a big thing. So if IFR flying is what you're going to do that day, fine. Get a safety pilot, get a flight instructor, work on your instrument skills. If it's going to be today is just a quote, a stick and rudder day, go out there and practice no flap landings and partial flap landings and full flap landings and go-arounds and short approaches and all the things that you should be doing every once in a while to stay proficient in the airplane.
Absolutely. Some great tips there, Mike. Being a business owner yourself, what has also been some of your biggest challenges running your business, and how did you overcome some of them?
Oh boy, profitability, always. I'm big into marketing and doing it right. And that's, in aviation, I'm one of those guys that I'm like, if you can't do it right, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. And we do that with our aviation business a lot, both executive flyers and the airshow business. So it's an expensive business to be in. So sometimes you're challenged with, I need to do it right, but it costs a lot of money, and how do I make that happen? And in the airshow business, we have some amazing sponsors that help us get across that hurdle. So for me, Goodyear Aviation and Aviol and Whelan Engineering and Lycoming and all these people are helping us day in and day out with that to make sure that I can be the best that I can be in my business in flying air shows. And then at Executive Flyers on the flight school side, we do have partners like Cirrus that are helping us be better and better every day. And our customers appreciate the level of service that we give them. So that's really the challenge for us, is to say, okay, we need to make sure that we can give the best service available, and yet sometimes charge for it more than what the industry standard might be. But if we do that really well, then the customers will appreciate that, and they'll pay that little bit higher price.
Absolutely. So where you stand today, Mike, what would you say is your greatest achievement and success you've reached so far in your life?
Wow. Personally, my family has been my greatest achievement, I think, and my hardest job as well is trying to raise my little girl, but also the most fun. I mean, for professionally, there's really been not one moment that I said, I've made it. And that's what I tell people that are coming up, is that the journey is the reward. It's not, hey, I won the nationals, or it's not, hey, I won the Art Scholl Award. Those are a recognition that you've done it a long time. But I say to people, you know what? You're going to become an overnight success in 20 years. And that's kind of the truth, is that the thing that I have more than anything, I have friends all over the world. I can go to Sweden and stay at somebody's house. I can go to Japan and stay at somebody's house. I can go to Hungary and stay at somebody's house. And we share a link and a common bond and a passion for flying, and the understanding of knowing what we did was difficult and special, and you have that bond with people. And I'm sure it's just like if you've ever spent a tour on an aircraft carrier as a Navy fighter pilot, you have a bond with those guys that nobody else can really understand. And we, as aerobatic pilots, we have a little bit of that. And that's the pride in knowing that you've done a good job for a long time and you've made friends doing it. So that's the biggest thing, is I just say enjoy the ride, because the hard work is the fun part.
And I'm liking that you said there that the 20 years you'll reach success in 20 years. And I like that, because I thought about this a couple of years ago, that when we look at some of the biggest companies out there like Amazon or Google, we assume that where they are today is just, bam, they've always been at the pinnacle of success. And it took many years of effort and hard work to reach where they are today. And that's one thing that I think people don't see. They see the end result of where you might have reached with your flying, or, where Amazon might have reached with their business, but they don't see what led up to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say for every air show that you've done for 12 minutes of flying, you've probably put in 100 hours of practice, right, as a kid. So I've been flying. I took my first aerobatic lesson when I was still a student pilot at 16 years old, and still practice every day and learn from everybody and all kinds of people. So you're never done learning, and it's always try to better yourself. That's what we try to do. Is we just had a conversation of how do we make the air show industry better. And, my comment was, you need to walk through the door every morning saying, how am I going to be better than I was today? Mm-hmm. And I think if we do that in life and in our professional work, it's going to come back to benefit us.
Mm-hmm. And I like that you also mentioned, Mike, that you're never really at the end. If you see life as a continual journey, that, hey, you won this award, you got this recognition, you reached this particular success, it's just along the journey. You can still do one better and learn and continue to get better and better each day. There's never an end to your journey. Yeah,
absolutely. And in aviation, I think we're all lucky. And, the biggest thing that I get some satisfaction from is that my name is alongside some of the other greats of the business like art show, like Leo Loudenslager and Charlie Hillard. And those are people that have built an industry that I was able to succeed in. And hopefully I can build an industry that the next generation can succeed in or continue that legacy. And that's a big deal. So for me, the personal achievement is one thing, but really trying to set the industry in a better place for the next generation is really something that I'll be proud of if I can look back at that 10 or 15 years from now and say, yeah, hey, you know what? I made it better for a Kevin Coleman or a Ben Freelove or somebody like that that's now successful.
That's awesome, Mike. And so what's on the horizon for Executive Flyers Aviation and Goulian Aerosports in the next year or so?
So, I think with Goulian Aerosports, we're gonna get back into the Red Bull Air Race and see where it takes us. I'm sure there's going to be lots of exciting days and times ahead, and frustrating as well. But exciting is certainly going to be the goal. And for Goulian Aerosports on the air show side, try to enhance our sponsor relationships, try to bring a bigger and better show to the audience, try to connect with more people, and just try to do a better job with that every day. And then for Executive Flyers, we've been really excited by our Cirrus connection, and they have a new jet coming out, and we can't wait to see that and expose our customers to the next level of transportation, because we're proudly building great pilots, and we want them to be able to use their skills in the best way. And I think when the jet comes out, there's going to be a bunch of happy people.
Yeah, me included. I love that airplane. And Mike, so what would be your last words you'd like to leave our audience with?
Well, I would say just really find your dream, find your passion, and then just work hard every day to make sure that it comes to fruition.
That's phenomenal advice. Thank you so much, Mike, for coming and sharing your wisdom and talents with our audience.
Oh, gosh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
Join us this Friday, November 29th at 1 p.m. Eastern, where our guest will be Don Vogel of Nassau Flyers. Nassau Flyers, Long Island's leader in flight training and airplane rentals. Don will share with us the lessons he's learned in running and owning a flight school. Savvy Central Radio is proud to host our 4th symposium. Join us in our new multi-part speaking series called Mastering the Influence Game, starting this fall in New York City. Every 2 months for the next several months, we'll be bringing you global cutting-edge experts in the field of influence, marketing, and media, designed to give entrepreneurs and small business owners the tools and strategies to take their business to the next level. To register and book your ticket today, go to masteringtheinfluencegame.eventbrite.com.